Hello, I'm Irma Baker. Welcome to our show. If you've watched us regularly, you know that we love to bring you new things, new people from our area. And one of our special things is to introduce you to new mystery authors. You've probably figured out I'm a big mystery fan, and we are so fortunate to have so many good authors here in our own area. Today, we have the award-winning Amanda Flower. Amanda, it's wonderful to have you with us. I'm so glad you could make it.
Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I'm glad I can finally come.
Me too. And when you say that finally, it is finally, because I've been wanting to have you on the show for years.
Right.
But somehow you have always been working, I would say, the equivalent of 2 full-time jobs all the time.
Yes.
It's only recently that you quit your day job, as they say, as a librarian.
Yes, early in December was the end of my library career after 15 years being a librarian. So that was a tough decision, but I'm lucky enough to be writing full time, so I'm very grateful for that.
15 years as a librarian, and of that time, you've had about, almost 10 years that you've been a published author, and really having a heavy production schedule for that.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about your books. I brought along my own copy of your very first book, which was Made of Murder. And I remember I was so thrilled to go to your launch party and actually be there on July 17th, 2010.
Yes.
So you're getting there.
Yeah.
The years are adding up.
They are.
But what I think is phenomenal is that in that time you have published, and when I say published, these are all traditionally published books. How many now?
25. So it's been, since 2010, it's been 25 novels. My 26th novel will come out on February 12th, and I have many, many more that I need to write that I'm under contract for. So I'm very, very lucky.
When you say many more, just how many is that?
Currently, I need to write 8 in 2019. That's what I'm under contract for. And then there's a few that the contracts go so far out that there's books that I'm under contract for that aren't actually due to 2021. So all in all, I have 12 I'm under contract for as of today. So, and I'm sure my agent will add to that as time goes on.
Well, I think that you've had some exciting times in that. I remember, like I said, your launch party, that for that first book, that was, I thought, very impressive, because here you are writing murder mysteries, and it was in a church.
Yes, yes.
Your launch party was in a church. Tell us how that came about.
Well, my mother was a Presbyterian minister, so it was the church where she was, her last church where she was associate pastor. So it's kind of a PK privilege to have the launch party at the church. And it was really wonderful because all of the church just was so excited, because they knew me since I was, that was a church I was baptized in as an infant. So they knew me since I was a teeny baby, and they always knew I wanted to write. I always snuck books into the church service. They always knew this is what I wanted. So they were just as proud of me as my parents or the rest of my family was. So it was really great. And they made wonderful snacks, so they're great cooks.
Yeah, mystery readers and writers, I think, are very much foodies as well as readers.
Yes.
Well, your parents were kind of interesting, too, because they were, I don't want to say diametrically opposed, but they did have very differing views.
Yeah, so my mom, she was a Presbyterian minister. Both of my parents have passed away. Sadly, and then my father was an electrical engineer, and my dad was a very quiet, conservative man, as you imagine, an electrical engineer, very witty, very funny, so that's where I get my humor. And then my mother was a very liberal, outspoken Presbyterian minister. She was the first woman to graduate from Ashland Seminary, minister of divinity. She was the first Presbyterian female pastor in our presbytery, ordained. So she was a kind of a trailblazer. So politically, they didn't agree on a whole lot, but somehow they found each other and they agreed on other things. So, and they were very happily married for a very long time. So, yeah.
Well, how does that kind of a background fit into writing mysteries? Or does it?
I think it does because you are exposed to different ideas. You know, I wasn't raised in a household where my parents were in 100% agreement about politics, the environment, you know, anything like that. So I heard both sides of the fence all the time. And as a result of that, I came out with my own personal opinions. And then it also gave me a view that neither side, the people that say those opinions, neither of them are bad. You know, I loved both of my parents. I don't agree with both of them politically on everything, either side. But it gave me an opportunity to be able to express different points of view in my writing. And then also to be able to, a lot of writing, any writing, but especially mystery, is based a lot on tension because people are always in different positions of what they want. So in my books, you know, who the killer wants to get away from the sleuth, that sort of thing. So I think being exposed to people that argue intellectually all the time kind of helps with that too, because both of my parents were super clever. So my killers even have to be clever. And my sleuth certainly has to be clever. So that's kind of helps.
When did you actually start writing? And did you start writing mysteries, or did you write other things before mysteries?
So actually, you know, to go way back, I decided that I wanted to be a mystery author when I was 11 years old. My teacher in 6th grade, I went to a small private Lutheran school, and our assignment when we were coming back from summer break was to write a short story about what we did over summer break. And all of my classmates, it seemed like, you know, when you're 11 years old, you assume that this is true. They all did super fun things. And I went to Jog a Lake, which, you know, in comparison to going to Florida or something like that, wasn't very exciting. So I wrote a story about going to Jog a Lake with my brother and my best friend, which is true. But on my story, we went on the Ferris wheel, and the Ferris wheel burst into flames, and my brother fell off of it, but he was saved. So I think my teacher knew that I wasn't creating a piece of creative nonfiction, which is basically what the assignment was. It was completely fabricated. But she and my classmates, they laughed. So I was like, oh my gosh, you know, this is what I'm gonna do forever. I'm just gonna write stories that make people laugh. And I went home and I told my dad, and he said, sure, you need a day job, and we kind of ended up on librarians. So at 11 years old, which is kind of strange, I decided I was gonna be an author librarian until I could just be an author. So it's really amazing, and I feel so grateful that today at 38 years old I can say that, like, you know, mission accomplished. But as far as mysteries, it's always been mystery for me. When I probably was 12, 13, 14, cozies were just starting to come out, and Donna Andrews was out, Erling Fowler, authors like that, and I just ate those books up. And I love the whodunit. I love solving the mystery along with the sleuth. I loved it that the sleuth is just a normal person. You know, they have a flower shop, or they're a librarian, or whatever they are. They're just a normal person, but they're able to basically save someone's life or their own and make a difference. So I really gravitated to that. And then I also gravitated to the community that a cozy creates. So like the characters around the protagonist are some of my favorite to write and my favorite to read about too. So the pets and the zany neighbor and the weird mother. Like, I loved that kind of stuff.
I remember asking you a long time ago with your first book how your mother felt about it, because you have a zany female Presbyterian
Right.
pastor in the book, and I knew your mother was a Presbyterian minister. So I asked you, and I remember you saying she was worse.
Well, she was as outspoken as that character, for sure. I wouldn't say she was that critical as that character was. So she was not a critical mother at all. But she certainly was not afraid to make her opinion known, which is something that I'm proud of her for. And I hope, and I'm sure she's proud of me, but she could never be as proud of me as I was of her, to, be able to tell people my mother's a pastor, and it was uncommon. So I really liked to kind of shock people and tell them that when I was a small child. And I was like, no, it's not my father. My mom's the pastor of this church.
That is something that most people don't encounter. Well, it's interesting, too, that you started out writing so early, and certainly reading so early, and observing these family dynamics and all, so that you not only write for adults, you also have written a series of mysteries for children. In fact, one of those was a major award winner. You won the Agatha Award. We have the teapot here.
Yes.
Right here on the table.
Yeah.
And that was for your book, was it Andy Unstoppable?
Yes.
Which is about a young girl, who is dealing with family dynamics.
Yeah.
How did you make the transition from writing for adults to writing for children?
Well, so I wrote Made of Murder, and it was on what I like to call its rejection tour of New York. And that's not uncommon for authors. Your first book, you get rejected. And I think at one point I counted that Made of Murder got rejected over 40 times. And that includes publishers and agents. And that number's probably lowballing, because at a certain point, it was just too negative to keep keeping score. So while that was happening, I was trying to write the sequel of Made of Murder, and it just wasn't gelling for me at the time. I didn't have a contract for the first book, so it was kind of hard to make myself write a sequel when I didn't know if it would go anywhere. So I decided there was this character, Andy, that was a young girl of 12, and she was in my head, and she would not leave me alone until I wrote her story. So I ended up writing Andy Unexpected, which was the first in the series. And it's actually sold quite a few years later after it was written, but I'm so glad that my agent was able to sell it, and it was published by HarperCollins, which was an amazing experience. And then all three of the books in the series were nominated for the Agatha, and then the third, Andy Unstoppable, actually won, which I cried. It was awful. It was wonderful, but I was a hot mess the entire time.
I was there when you won the award at the big banquet in Bethesda, Maryland. I think it was Bethesda, Maryland, and you were not the only one with wet eyes at that. I know there were people at my dinner table who were also there, because everyone was so happy for you and so proud of you and so glad that you were being recognized for your contributions and your skill and your talent there in putting it together. But tell me, how did you feel? What was your reaction after you had all those rejections?
Yeah.
What was your reaction when you finally got an acceptance? Did you actually, how long did it take to really register?
It didn't take very long. So the story of how Made of Murder came about, I had an agent when I was very young. I was 24 years old. Didn't have a clue what an agent was supposed to do. I wasn't As before, I was involved, very involved in Sisters in Crime, so I just didn't know, I didn't even know what I didn't know about publishing. And, you know, I realized that she wasn't actually a good agent, so I ended up firing her. So I was with her for 3 years, and in that time, Maid of Murder traveled all around New York and got rejected by everyone. So I was like, well, I can't query a new agent with this book because everyone in New York's seen it and everyone in New York said no. So I needed, if I wanted Maid of Murder to get published, I was going to have to try myself. So I started querying small presses, which about 10 years ago, they were still around. So small presses that take unagented manuscripts. So I did that, and one of the ones I sent to was 5 Star, which was a small imprint of Gail Sungage that does primarily library-bound encyclopedias and now databases, because bound encyclopedias are kind of extinct. So I sent it to them, and I was rejected right away. In the meantime, I was writing what would become Andy Unexpected. A year goes by, and I got an email on my computer from a new acquisitions editor at 5 Star, and she said, I found your manuscript on my predecessor's computer, and I want to buy it. So I was at the time I was working at Ursuline College in Pepper Pike as a librarian, and I got the email, and my office was tucked back in the history section of the library. So we had Library of Congress, so it was like in the D's, like the most dead location in the entire academic library. And I screamed so loud that like people like ran out of different hidey holes to see like if someone had died. So, which would have been, you know, since I write murder mysteries, might have been appropriate, but I wanted to see this through before that actually happens. So yeah, no, it didn't take very long to register at all.
Well, since that time, you have gone on to write so many books, like another 20 books.
Yeah.
You've written since then. Tell us a little bit about some of your other series. I know we have copies here of your Amish series, which is set in Ohio.
Yeah. I've written 3 Amish series. The one that we have here today is the Amish Candy Shop. And it's set in Holmes County. It's about a New York chocolatier that her grandparents are Amish. And she comes back to Ohio to take care of an ailing grandfather, and someone dies in the kitchen, so now she's got to stay. It's so crazy how that happens. And that series is done super well. I'm really happy with it. The next book in the series will come out actually in March, and it's called Criminally Coco, and it's a novella. So there will be 3 more novellas and 3 more novels in this series. And then when the 3 novellas come out, they come out originally as e-published, and then when all 3 of them come out, they will bind it and sell it in paperback as well.
I was just going to ask you to explain the novella concept.
Yeah, so a novella is, for this series, it's like the mysteries between the murders. It's kind of how I'm describing it. There's no murders in these mysteries, but Criminally Coco, for example, my character goes back to New York to shoot a TV show, which is, you know, that's kind of like what we're doing right now, and someone is sabotaging the set. So one of the people she brought with her, an Amish girl, kind of becomes a sleuth, but no one dies, so it's the mysteries between the murders in the series. And then along with the Amish Candy Shop, there will be a spin-off series called the Amish Matchmakers series, also published by Kensington and set in the same world, so also in Holmes County. So there'll be crossover of characters, which I'm writing the first of that, so it's really fun. Like, I'm trying to curb my urge to put all of my characters from the candy shop, just like they keep randomly walk across the page, and I was like, that doesn't necessarily need to be there. I'll just take that out. But so that's really fun.
Well, when you say Amish Matchmaker series, does that mean that won't be a mystery series?
It will be mystery too. So I'm excited about it because it's my first sleuth. Not only is she Amish, but she's in her 60s. So she's a widow. She makes her living by quilting, and she also solves murders. So, as you will if you're an Amish matchmaker.
I guess there are mysteries wherever you go,
of course.
No matter what culture or what country or what part
Right.
of the country you're in.
Right.
Well, what about your newest ventures? What I'm just so
Yeah.
impressed by
Oh, thank
how
you.
much you're able to do, and I know that you took a trip to Scotland not too long ago,
Yeah.
and that was work related.
That was work related. It was a year ago, May, that the first book in my Scottish series came out, and it's the Magic Garden Mysteries, published by Crooked Lane. And the first book is called Flowers and Foul Play. And it is about a girl who is a florist, and her flower shop closes in Nashville, Tennessee. She has this loser fiance who wants to be a country music star and is never going to get off. I mean, there's no way. He's not that good. And he breaks up with her. So she finds out that she inherited a garden and a cottage in Scotland. So she, pulls up her boots and she flies across the ocean. And first day she's in her garden, again, she finds a dead guy. So she's got to solve that murder because, she could get deported from the country, or she could end up in prison. Both not really great things to happen if you just want to move to a new place. The second book in the series is called Death and Daisies, and that's my most recent book, and it came out in November. And that one, it's also in the same town in Scotland, which is in Aberdeenshire. And my character is solving the murdering of a minister, actually, from the Church of Scotland. So being Presbyterian, I thought it was okay, close enough to kill off a minister since it's of my own ilk.
Well, there's another aspect, though, of these Scottish mysteries, and there's a sense of the paranormal through them, which you have not really done in any of your previous series.
Yeah, so in this series, there is, it's a magic series, so I like to call it magical realism. So there's no monsters, there's no ghosts, there's nothing like that, but there is an underlying theme of mysticism and folklore. So of course Scotland has all the Celtic folklore that I can pull from that you could possibly want. There's a standing stone similar to the stones of Stonehenge, but just a single one that's in the garden. So there's a yellow rose that grows on the stone that never dies, even in the winter. So that has magical properties and actually gives my character visions. And then there's some other characters that have magical qualities, but I don't want to say too much because those are surprises as you're reading through the story. And then I also wrote the Magical Bookshop series. In that one, my next book that comes out February 12th will be the third in that. So it's also a magical realism mystery, and that's set in Niagara Falls, New York. So.
Oh, why Niagara Falls?
Well, that was my first series set outside of Ohio. And I love Ohio so much. I've lived here my whole life. But I wrote 20 books set in Ohio, and I just needed to mentally go somewhere else. And I love to travel. I've been all over the world. And so I wanted to venture outside of my own state. And I wanted to use Native American folklore as the basis of my mysticism for that series. So Niagara Falls, there's all the stories of the falls and things like that. So it seemed like the perfect place. And also, since it was my first time venturing out of the state as writing, it's also very close to here. So I could go there as often as I needed throughout the writing of the manuscript to get the details right. Because just like my Scottish book, if I'm going to write about a place, I need to have my feet on the ground. It's very important to me. I would not write about somewhere that I haven't been, that I haven't smelled, that I haven't touched or saw the people that lived there. So.
Well, I wish that we had more time to talk with you, but I want, before we have to wrap this up for today, I want to know, in addition to the ones you've talked about, you said that you have 8 manuscripts due this year. You mentioned a couple of them.
Sure.
What's coming up?
Well, the ink's not dry on all the contracts, so I can't mention all of them, but I have a third Magic Garden book coming out. That I'll be writing, that'll come out the next year. So you write your books 12 to 18 months in advance of the publication. So there'll be a third in that series. There's a whole lot of candy shop, Amish candy shops. So Criminally Cocoa will come out in March, and then Toxic Toffee will come out in July, and then I'm writing those. I'm writing the Amish Matchmaker spinoff that'll start, it will actually come out in 2020. And then a couple more surprises that I'm not allowed to say yet. But as soon as I can, I will certainly announce them on all my social media.
Well, I think we have your website up, and from that, I'm sure people can go to anywhere that you are online.
Yes,
online.
And if you follow me online, you'll see lots of pictures of flowers and lots of pictures of cats.
Oh, we didn't even mention cats and cozy mysteries, but I know you are a cat lover too.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, Amanda, it is really a pleasure to have you with us. Do you have just one short bit of advice for anyone who's watching out there and things that they might want to write?
My advice, I'm also the author in resident at Hudson Library. So I meet with people all the time to help them on their writing path, wherever stage they're in. And what I tell invariably everyone is, trying to get published is beating your head on a metal door, like over and over and over again. And you just have to keep doing it, and it's gonna hurt, and it's really hard, but eventually that door is gonna crack open, and you'll get your foot in, and then you'll just be amazed where your life will go from there. So just perseverance.
Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for being with us today, and thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope that you have enjoyed this as much as I have, and I hope you'll join us again. For RSVP, I'm Irma Baker.